eLearningEuropa.info, opening up education through innovation.
My role at the Media Lab is actually a combination of different things. I came to the Media Lab as a Director's Fellow, which is it's an effort by the Media Lab to reach out to people that are working in kind of interesting areas and bring them to the Media Lab and connect them to the Media Lab. And as a fellow, I have two roles. One is to look at the Media Lab as an institute itself and what it could do in online learning, so opening up courses that are happening at the Media Lab, and then doing research and projects around the bigger question of what's the future of online learning. I did not have an amazing university experience in my life, and I think I'm still a little upset about it. And so I feel like the institution should have given me a better experience, and I'm working on ways that more people can have a better experience, not just at the institution, but maybe there are other places. So the first one we did is an online course called Learning Creative Learning, which is a course that was taught at the Media Lab to students. It's about creative learning technologies. And we created an open online version of that course, which really is more of a community of co-learners, people coming together around the topics and learning with each other, collaborating with each other. And so that was my first project. It was also the first online course the Media Lab has ever offered. And it was very different from traditional online courses. It was much more inviting people to collaborate, inviting people to work on projects that they cared about, and forming a community around the materials rather than giving everyone, this is what you should do, this is what you should learn. It was more about people taking responsibility and ownership of the process. So Peer-to-Peer University is a kind of an experimental community of people who are building online learning experiences. We've offered lots of courses, so over 500 courses have been offered by people at Peer-to-Peer University, and the way it works is anyone can come and create a course. Some of the topics are very high quality, university level, other things are more focusing on their hobbies. So that's the traditional Peer-to-Peer University. And then we have started looking at more kind of other areas. We've developed this idea of digital badges, which has become a big Mozilla project now. We've started experimenting with very large courses. So we use other people's materials as much as possible. We use existing tools. We don't build new platforms. We use very small open source applications that we stick together. It's very much driven by the community. And so Learning Creative Learning is a perfect collaboration between Peer-to-Peer University with our approach to learning online, very much peer-to-peer using open source software, and then the Media Lab. We picked this course which was on creative learning, which seemed to be a good fit. We talk about Peer-to-Peer University in two ways. One is it's an institution, right? So it's a place that people can come and there's a platform and we develop tools. And then the other way we talk about it is it's an idea. Right, so we don't want to own it. We don't want to say that everyone who does Peer-to-Peer University has to come to our website and wear our T-shirt and do it under our brand. Peer learning really does work, and there is lots of research that supports it. There's one study that I'll briefly mention is the Harvard assessment study, because it was done at Harvard University, and people usually pay attention when things come out of Harvard. And they did a big review of what determines the success of the Harvard students. So if you're a student at Harvard, what determines if you are going to be successful as a student? And they found that the number one most important indicator is your ability to form or join study groups with other students. So it's the ability to learn with people who are roughly at your level. And peers doesn't mean that everyone knows or doesn't know the same thing, but it means that people engage with each other on a more equal playing field. So you don't expect someone else to tell you everything, but you want to learn it. And the other person in the same way is willing to share, but they're also learning something. And the other thing is that I think makes this real for most people is if you've ever explained something to someone, you realize that you really learn, you really know it. If you're able to explain it well. And so often when we're explaining it to our colleagues in university, we learn something, then they have a question, we explain it to them, we realize, oh, actually we didn't fully understand it, and then that process helps us really learn it ourselves. So yes, peer learning really does work. There's a group of students who got involved into the School of Webcraft very early on, from Colombia actually, but they formed a network in other South American countries. And they said what they're missing in their education experiences. They were all students at universities, and they said what we're missing is practical experience and kind of the evidence that we've built things when we come out of university. And so for them, School of Webcraft was an approach that they could add to their university experience additional courses which were structured around building projects, so that by the end of their university they could say, okay, I have the degree now, but I've also spent 4 years working in School of Webcraft building these projects as part of the Mozilla community, which is very well respected. So there is some anecdotal evidence that this is helping people who are looking for additional qualifications beyond their university. The technology will create new opportunities, and for me that is exciting, and I think the opportunities will outweigh the negative sides. But it does require the people who are in the system right now to start thinking about their roles as a different role, maybe more as a facilitator of learning, maybe someone who focuses on a particular aspect of their discipline and tries to build up a reputation in that area, or maybe someone who does more research and just says maybe the teaching isn't for them, which is, I think that's one of the frustrating experiences for many young academics, is that they are expected to teach, but the teaching isn't really valued for their tenure process, and they're expected to do research, which is more important for the tenure. So they have basically these two very different requirements, and maybe this is an opportunity also for the university to rethink if that makes sense, right? Why not have some people who are great researchers, and maybe they're terrible teachers, and have some people who are amazing teachers or facilitators, and maybe they are not so good at research, and they should have, interesting positions as well. It's twofold, the answer. So on one hand, I'm very excited about this, and you're absolutely right that because so much of it happens online, we are able to trace what people are doing, how they're doing it, what they like, where they're getting stuck, where they're going to be successful. And so there's a lot we can learn about how people learn that was much harder to observe before. My hesitation about learning analytics is more that the moment you start measuring something, people pay attention to what you're measuring. We have a tendency to measure the things that we are able to measure rather than the things that we really care about necessarily. And so my concern with learning analytics is that that's what's happening right now. We have all this data, we can start looking at all these analytics, but we don't always ask ourselves, is the thing we really care about, which is the learning, is that what we are measuring here? And is that the data we need to draw conclusions? Or are we starting to focus on things that we can measure with the computer and with this data, and maybe we lose sight a little bit of the more important things? And that is a little bit my concern right now with all the measurements. I'm frustrated that the MOOCs are not open. Many of them don't license their content openly. You can't use it, translate it, run your own course with it. When the course ends, often it even gets closed, so you can't even go back to get the materials. Even if you participated, you can't get back to the things you said in the course, which is crazy. And so the open is really more about free of charge at the moment, and I think that is the least interesting piece. It would be better if people paid, but the materials were really open and the participation was really open, and we could see where, open is what drives innovation. I feel like the OpenCourseWare Consortium and the OpenCourseWare movement is a good example of that. They need to bring more of that thinking into the MOOCs. The cost of higher education is a huge problem. I just read an article, the first university now has over $50,000 tuition per year. So going to university, a good university, may cost you $250,000 or more for your education. And so it's completely unaffordable for most people. Another reason why it's particularly North American is because there's a much larger startup culture, and people are excited that maybe new startups could develop new models for higher education, and so people are excited about those aspects. So I'm a huge fan of public funding for education. But at the same time, in Germany, the fact that the universities are mostly funded by the state is actually holding back innovation right now, because they do not have the same pressure to come up with new ideas. And so they're much more hesitant to try a new thing. I think the publicly funded university systems should encourage and push for more experimentation and innovation and make public funding dependent on innovation. I think the real influence is the opportunities that the web offers us for people to collaborate with each other, to exchange content at no cost. And that is universal, and that is going to affect university systems all over the world in a similar way. They're going to change in different time frames, in different ways, the structures are different, but the real innovation comes from the web and the internet, and it's not the fact that universities are too expensive in the US. I have kind of mixed feelings about the dropout. On one hand, the standard answer is that if you have 100,000 people start and 10,000 finish, it's still 10,000 people, which is still huge, bigger than any university course that the university runs. So some people are saying it's not really a problem. Other people are saying, well, even though people drop out, they're actually lurking, right? Maybe they don't participate fully, but they're lurking, and learning by lurking is also valid. And I agree with both of those. I think both of those are true. Huge dropout, right? People sign up for 1 million courses, they're not really interested, and that's the way the internet works. And then some people participate not actively. We actually don't see them participate, but when you ask them in the survey, did you enjoy the experience? They sometimes are the most happy with the experience. They say, no, this was extremely useful for me. I never posted anything, but I read all the other people's comments. So those two are definitely true, and probably it's not as big an issue in these large courses as it would be in a university course where you start with 100 people. If you lose 90 people, it's a disaster. We are losing too many people, and we're losing the wrong people. There are many people in those 90,000 that we lose, so that the completion rate in most MOOCs is between 2% and 10%, right, which is very low. So in those 90%, there are lots of people who are lurking. There are lots of people who actually had no interest in the course, but there are also lots of people who wanted to take this course and who are not succeeding because it's too hard for them or because they don't understand what they're supposed to do. And I feel like there's a huge opportunity missed there to spend more time looking, better understanding as why are these people stopping to participate? Why are they stopping to contribute? I want people to learn in ways that brings out their passions, that doesn't say this is the thing you should pay attention to and this is not valuable. I think we are much more diverse than what the university supports right now. I think with my optimist perspective, I think there will be more participation of more people, so it'll be a much more diverse ecosystem of learning. We will recognize more unusual participation. So people don't have to go and get a degree in 4 years. Maybe they'll go work, they'll do internships, they'll travel around the world, then they'll take a course here, they'll take a course there. Like it'll be much more formed around what the individuals are interested in, and the institutions are going to support much more flexible arrangements. And so I think that's kind of the long-term, my optimist vision. And then what people don't often talk about, I think we will see tremendous innovation in the campus experience.
For more information, please visit our website, www.eLearningEuropa.info.